Good evening. Good evening. It's a good time that we see again. Engage one evening, the night session. I've lost count of how many sessions we've held. Some of you we have known, and any one of you has been here before. I've seen a few of you, and you've been truly supportive of what we do. I'm curious why you're here for each session. Now I'm interested in learning about the developments of our world. And exactly, and this is what we want to do this for. We want to discuss social, economic, or other activities or issues. Now, Ms. Kong, a legislator, has been invited to here tonight, and we like to invite a broad range of people, professionals, experts, politicians, etc. Now, the organizers for tonight is CDI and Incu-Lab. For me, CDI is focused on nurturing great thinkers and those keen to learn more about the community. We hope to groom a generation of thinkers, and we as a think tank will work towards that goal on multiple fronts. And we have also had social services, and actually it's been a productive year for us. I hope that you can continue to support us. The other organizer, Incu-Lab, it is an incubator of many innovative companies and startups, hoping to help them to run their business and to thrive in their business. And the organization works with multiple agencies. Usually startups come from discovery of problems. They propose solutions and they thus start a business. And innovation can take place on multiple fronts in the community today, economic or cultural and other aspects. And now we won't introduce all other supporting organizations. Tonight our topic is Hong Kong Development and Transformation Series. And let George to give you a welcome remark.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our latest in our series of engagement evenings. We started this about a year ago, and it's okay, okay. And we'll continue this as long as we can get interesting topics. Greater Bay Area, of course, is quite a high-profile topic, and Greater Bay Area, I think, we get the impression that it's something relatively new. But actually, the Greater Bay Area started off as an economic area back in the 1840s, when the foreign trading companies came to China, and they set up a network of offices, Canton, Macau, Hong Kong, and that was the Greater Bay Area. It's three sides of the Greater Bay Area. And I think the other thing that we tend to forget is that the Greater Bay Area, and Shenzhen in particular, was kick-started by Hong Kong manufacturers. When Hong Kong manufacturing became uncompetitive due to high land costs, high labor costs, towards the end of the 1970s, Hong Kong manufacturers moved into China. And in fact, I think they were responsible, and it was because of them that Deng Xiaoping was able to institute his opening up of manufacturing in China. And the Hong Kong manufacturers really kick-started modern manufacturing in China. I recall visiting factories in China in 1976, 1977, and the standard was very, very basic. So I think without Hong Kong, China manufacturing would probably be 20 years behind what it is now. Anyway, it's a few of my thoughts. Anyway, enjoy and the discussion.
希望享受你哋今晚嘅討論。Thank you, George. If you remember the generation before us, they'll go into the mainland to do business, set up factories. We know the throngs of people in the 1980s started to go into the mainland to do business. We can talk to those people and learn from them that Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area have been closely working side by side. But behind this Greater Bay Area collaboration, there are many things worth considering. Now, Teacher Lau is our guest speaker tonight. Let me give you a brief intro of Mr. Lau. I'm sure that many of you have got to know him through different channels. Of course, primarily through his role as seasoned news professionals and commentators who have been in a trade for decades. And secondly, we know that Mr. Lau is a very well-known China expert. He's very updated about political, economic, and social issues in China, and he has been teaching in colleges and universities. Those of the young generation may have had the opportunity to listen to him teaching. Now, without much ado, I will pass outright to Mr. Lau. Thank you so much for coming. It's dinner time. Have you had your dinner already? No, you haven't. Well, that's a normal Hong Kong people's lifestyle, skipping dinners. So I'm not going to spend too much time holding up your dinner time too much. But my topic today is the past and the present of the strategies of collaboration with the Greater Bay Area. So you need to know about the history, the background. I will start with something you're familiar with, and then I won't say anything to promote myself. You need to be wise not to fall for promotional stuff out there in the market. And I will go on to talk about specific stuffs. To start off, how do you view the Greater Bay Area and Hong Kong's position in this region? I will spend roughly 3 minutes to prep you for the focus of the talk tonight. You come here for different agendas. You want to study policies, and others might know about how you can do business or trading. So you must know what perspectives you're standing on, from official or macro policy perspectives, or from a micro perspective, trying to figure out how practical needs can be met. So, having heard the intro, you know how to make the most of the talk tonight. Whether individuals or government, these are 4 factors you need to consider. I, as a Hong Konger, have spent my life, going up and down. In the mainland China, I've had 3 near-death experience or total failure in mainland China. That's because of these 4 factors. First is willingness, your own willingness, that you have chosen to stay in Hong Kong speaks volume. I've had an article published in Ming Pao today where I said I deeply respect and admire and those people who are still staying in Hong Kong. Otherwise, you will be like a classic actress Chan Bo-ju, who said, you have lost the emotional attachment to a place. Now, having talked about willingness, it's important to talk about your capacity, your competence. I respect those who have moved out of Hong Kong because they want to contribute to the city in their own capacity. And thirdly, you must know your background. Even though you have a heart and desire to pursue your career, to be influential in China and Hong Kong. But you know, you need connections, interpersonal relationships to thrive in China. You need to have a very solid background. Now, background contains more than interpersonal connections. It has become more complicated than before. And our greatest background we can rely on is the separate system that Hong Kong enjoys. Let's set aside all non-market factors. This is a solid ground that we can stand on. Fourth is environment. Background was more about the past, and the environment is more about the present. Now let's talk about things that have happened. Some you may not have known, but I'll let you know about them. And then you know what strategies we can adopt to thrive and to adapt to today. I will talk about the stability and consistency of policies. Government policies, or Beijing's policies towards Hong Kong. And we'll talk about the Hong Kong SAR government. We have found the SAR government have been working pretty hard. I've got into contact with many government officials. None of them are slackening because Mr. Xia Baolong said, he said something that conveyed the message of the Beijing government. He said that we have achieved the purpose of restoring stability. Beijing has done his part. Of course, he said it implicitly. But it's up to Hong Kong to bring the city from order and stability to prosperity. Now this has become the motivation and also pressure for the Hong Kong government, especially Mr. Sam Ho-fai is now the new chief executive of Macau. And Ho Yat-seng has just finished his first 5-year term. Why not giving him another 5-year term and give the place to Sam Ho-fai instead? So I can see there's every reason for our government to work hard. But when it comes to policy, stability and consistency, we need to consider the practical impact of them. And the second factor is predictability. I've just heard some of you complaining about the rapidity of changes. So this is the issue of predictability. I don't have insights into many things. If I had insights into absolutely any things, I would have been much better than where I am today. So predictability is something you should take into consideration, whoever you are. And then third, it's very important to tell the difference between the reality and promotion. My career 51 years ago, and the more I work, the more attached I am to this trade. So, do you think how old I am? I'm only 17 years old, because I feel younger and younger as the more I work as a news professional. But it's very important not to turn journalism into propaganda or publicity. That's everywhere to be found in today's journalism. And some say that, wow, that's supposed to be, journalism is supposed to be publicity. So we have to tell the difference between publicity and reality. I'll let you know what is publicity, but you must know about it, because the mainland friends will tell you about the publicity and things on the surface, things on paper, or the official party speak. You need to tell the difference. So I won't be wasting any of your time. Now, I will go very brief on this part. Many people in the past generations, and from 1995 to 2012, and many people have put many effort into contributing to Hong Kong. But nowadays, a lot of effort has gone down drain. I was personally involved in many of the efforts made back then. I won't go very detailed into some of the past endeavors. Actually, 2 years before the handover in 1995, mainland and its Hong Kong counterparts have formed a joint venture. Actually, it's a joint endeavor listing 10 projects for collaboration between the two places. Of the 10 programs, the proposal was given to two people. One was given to Chris Patton, but he was about to leave. The second proposal was given to the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office. And they were very fond of the proposal, but the execution rested on the administration after the handover. But due to all kinds of coordination issues or communication issues, the 10 proposals only saw 2.5 of them implemented in 1999, and one of them was 24/7 checkpoint operation. Talking about today, in light of the past proposals, we can see some of the old ideas being put into practice. The first project is the high-tech collaboration with Shenzhen, but in its inception, the idea was Hong Kong and mainland will be each responsible for two affairs. For Hong Kong's responsibility is management and financing. For the mainland, the responsibilities are human power and infrastructure. Shenzhen made it very clear that once mainland talents come into Shenzhen to work with Hong Kong on the high-tech front, the Shenzhen household qualification will be issued to them immediately. But the Hong Kong government official came to me and said, why we should benefit outside parties? I told him, no, we're benefiting ourselves. Hong Kong was riding on a very strong momentum with the foreign exchange reserves. There were many times that of mainland China. So I won't tell the entire story of the history. The more you remember, the greater regret you will feel about things past. So that program was abandoned. And the second project was a proposal phasal development of the Shenzhen River Bend area. The first proposal was to straighten the bend so that the Shenzhen River will become something like a canal and connecting the west and the east of Shenzhen, the two main ports on either side of the city. And the second proposal was, without much work done, and open up the river to both cities. And then there were many obstacles. I cannot blame them, but there were indeed many coordination issues. The third idea was to set up a processing zone there. Because of the high labor costs, people thought it would be cost-effective to do the work there. And the idea was for every Hong Kong worker hired, 2 mainland workers would also be hired. A lot of ideas sound feasible, but none of them came through. Now I will talk about, and I will later talk about, a proposal regarding the riverbend area that may have been revived today. Now, many people will find, the mainland very scary. When they cross the Shenzhen River, their heart sinks. I would tell them, there's no reason to be afraid. What matters is you know how to work with them. You don't work against them, you don't fight with them, you simply learn to work with them. If you don't know how to fight with them, you get beaten up. But fight is not the default mode when you deal with your mainland counterparts. You can learn to deal with them, work with them. And it's very important we know how to do it so as to keep our business alive and us physically alive. Now, we'll talk about the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. You know when the idea was proposed? It was in 1985, proposed by Yui-Siu Lau. He was saying that with that bridge, things would go well, but the idea was botched because of the intense competition within the business community, and Mr. Leung Kwang-dai, who was known for his boldness, the mayor of Zhuhai back then, and he told Beijing that we have found investment, but actually there was none. And he built a bridge to convince the Beijing that the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge is about to happen. So President Xi presided over the opening of this mighty bridge, but there had been a very long period of delay in between. And you will still remember the single Y and 2Y structure or design of the bridge? Well, back then, the idea was to have a double Y, one link to Macau, the other to Zhuhai. But what about on the Hong Kong side? The idea was double Y too, linking up Shenzhen. But Hong Kong's idea was not to benefit Shenzhen, diverting the cargo flow of Hong Kong ports. So nowadays, the double Y, the second Y on the Hong Kong side is ready to be built, but Shenzhen has moved way beyond Hong Kong. Now, the West Channel, when it was operational, it was 2007, celebrating the 10th anniversary of the handover, so it was a 10-year delay. It was a very wide bridge that was little used, but now it is, the traffic there is pretty heavy right now. As for the 24/7 checkpoint operation, it was bitterly opposed by the property developers. They were saying, with that, nobody would come and buy our properties in the northern new territories. So again, it was a long delay. Now we talk about the shipping industry, the maritime shipping industry. Now, Shenzhen's focus back then was to develop the Yantian port. The Shekou port was already operational. Obviously, there is great potential to Yantian port, and the investors for that port were Hong Kong businessmen. So, they clearly were attracted to the low operational cost of the Yantian port. That's why they put their money in it. And they can continue to charge the very high fees from the Hong Kong port. I've kept telling people you don't manipulate mainland people because they're smart. They are very decisive. In Hong Kong, there is a very rigorous procedure to do certain things. But for the mainland counterparts, their decision is pretty quick, even though they can be faulty decisions sometimes. So the Hong Kong business community wanted to boost the Yantian port, and there was a tunnel linking downtown Shenzhen and Yantian port. It was a Wutongshan tunnel. It was bought too, and once bought, the tunnel fees immediately increased, and the Shenzhen government invested 1.5 billion yuan to build a separate channel bypassing the Wutongshan tunnel invested by Hong Kong businessmen, and that separate tunnel was for free. So the idea, the lesson for Hong Kong is how to give full play to our advantages and how to form a positive partnership. The Western channel, the Western pathway was finally operational. But Shenzhen was not keen in linking up with you through that Western pathway. So we need to consider our mainland connections. Now, Hong Kong is no longer one of the top 10 ports of the world. Even Nansha port, Nansha was a latecomer. The 2023 cargo throughput of the Nansha port overtook that of Hong Kong ports, not to mention Shanghai and Ningbo ports. And Hong Kong's heyday was long gone. Now, we talk about the Gold Coast of East Shenzhen. Have you ever been to that OCT into Shenzhen East? Yeah, it's a place to have fun. You can spend 2 or 3 days there enjoying yourselves. And Shenzhen was already building border checkpoints in that neighborhood, hoping to work with the Sai-Kung and the country parks in the Hong Kong East, but that idea was abandoned. The traditional Chinese medicine port was one of the proposals too. You know where it was supposed to be located? There was a Ma in it. Yes, it was originally planned to be located in Ma Wan, right beneath the Tsing Ma Bridge. I don't remember the name. It was supposed to be where the TCM port is. And now, obviously, it was gone. It didn't came into reality. There was an investor, surnamed Chan, was very interested in the proposal, and he submitted that to the Hong Kong SAR government. But the administration back then was only interested in the financial industry. And later, Mr. Tong Chi Hua regretted not having taken Mr. Chan's proposal. Now, all these projects have gone down the drain. For example, maritime shipping industry of Hong Kong will be infinitely behind that of our mainland peers. Mainland ports have been highly automated, for example, in Nansha, and ports are operated without manpower, but that's not the same in Hong Kong. And we have realized that mainland have been able to give play to many of its latecomer advantages. Having talked about the past, we need to now talk about the trend of the Greater Bay Area. You know, the Greater Bay Area is a trend. You have to accept whether you like it or not. You may not want to cross the border, but the Greater Bay Area will be developed. It has received the top attention from the Beijing government. There are 4 Greater Bay Areas in mainland China, one near Bohai, covering Dalian, Liaoning, tasked with trading with South Korea and Japan. The second Greater Bay Area is located in the Yangtze River Delta, consisting of Shanghai, Hangzhou, Nanjing. And the third delta is between Beijing, Tianjin, and Tangshan. The fourth one is the Greater Bay Area. Now, the GBA has received the greatest attention from Beijing because it's key to the double circulation that is closely intertwined with the Belt and Road. Now, the scheme is beset with problems. Now it has been better, but in the past it's all about throwing about money. And in 2015, the foreign exchange reserve was suddenly dipped by $1 trillion. $1 trillion were gone. Certainly, we can learn some lessons from that. The improved version of the Belt and Road, and may have some promising projects after all. And it relies on the success of the Greater Bay Area. Now this is one of the 10 proposals proposed in 1995, and some of the links were pretty implicit. Now, after the handover, in 2004, do you remember what happened in 2004? Yes, there was a 9+2 collaboration scheme. That is 9 provinces in the south of the Yangtze River plus Hong Kong and Macau, proposed by Mr. Zhang Dejia, who is the party secretary of Guangdong. 9+2 was a concept raised back then. I told many that this idea would not be able to take off because it spanned nearly half of China. It is too vast for Hong Kong businessmen to make a fruitful investment. They usually follow the direction of the central government. For example, development of the West. Only one Hong Kong businessman went there to invest in Dunhuang. They were not very convinced about the idea. And when Mr. Hu Jintao took office, and he was ambitious, developing the northeast the heavy factories manufacturing was not an area that Hong Kong investors are familiar with, and central government just wanted their money. Now eventually one Hong Kong entrepreneur said, I've got 1 billion. 1 billion yuan is up for you, is at your disposal. So actually, the 10 billion was the kind of administration fees for that businessman to do business in the mainland China. So these are some of the special things about doing business with China. You need to know about them. Now we're also talking about 9+2, but it's the 9 cities plus 2 SARs within the Pearl River Delta. It is small, therefore it is practical. In 2023, the Greater Bay Area covers an area of 56,000 square kilometers with a total GDP of 13.6 trillion yuan. That was back in 2023. In 2024, the performance declined. There have been many ups and downs. And for the first 3 quarters, the Guangdong province, it failed to reach its target. The average growth rate was 4.2%, lagging behind the average of 4.8%, much less than the central government's objective of 4.8%. We estimate the central government will be able to achieve its growth target because they can massage the numbers, they can, inflate the numbers, but you need to understand the definition of their numbers. Otherwise, you'll be deceived, you'll be fooled. I'm not saying that all their numbers are unreliable, but you need to be able to drill down into the numbers to know what they are. Now, the entire Greater Bay Area is now has taken shape, and the trend is already ongoing. Now, have you seen the positioning of these 9 cities within the Greater Bay Area? Each city has its own central mission as required, as planned by the Beijing authorities, closely in line with the 14th five-year plan and riding on the past 5-year plans. But I can assure you that none of the cities will stick closely to the positioning, otherwise their GDP will suffer. A lot of officials in the mainland, commonly say that many local officials were, dare to play a game called red, yellow, green traffic light. Hong Kong government officials don't know about them, but it doesn't matter. The so-called traffic light policy. Okay, now we know the central government's policies. We'll do it. We'll take the first step. If the light has turned yellow, maybe it's time to, step on the gas pedal and start dashing forward. What if the light turns red? When the light turns green, just ride along. When it turns yellow, speed up. When it turns red, you turn the corner and continue your journey. So you've got to have a very firm grip of the policies and able to find your wiggle room, whatever the direction is from Beijing. I can tell you that each city, every single city, will aim at overtaking Hong Kong in respective capacities. To be more visual, I can show you that each city, especially Shenzhen, is aimed at displacing Hong Kong. Actually, Shenzhen themselves, the Shenzhen government themselves, are very obsessed with their own performance, the local performance, so we cannot blame them for seeking to displace Hong Kong. Coming to 2023, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and both cities have had a GDP of over 3 trillion yuan, and Dongguan, Foshan, over 1 trillion yuan in GDP. And Dongguan used to be a hub for Taiwanese investors. Now, Guangzhou already engulfed Panyu, and they wanted to take up Dongguan too. Now, Guangzhou is eyeing at eating up Huizhou too. And Huizhou was hesitant because the influence of the Chiu-Chao and Shuatou people were very strong there, attracting investment from Chiu-Chao businessmen such as Li Ka-shing. Now, the total population of the GBA is 86 million. Now, 25 Fortune 500 companies have set a presence there, 5 more than in 2018. The 9 cities' advantages and disadvantages in mainland China. And they need to know the policy making of the local government, even the livelihood policies and social policies of these different cities. Now, my focus tonight will be more on the macro level. The Greater Bay Area has forged into one single locality or a single region. For example, Guangzhou, you can take MTR or the metro. It used to take them 1 hour to travel from downtown Guangzhou to Panyu. Now, the metro lines of Guangzhou have reached to different cities nearby. Now the Shenzhen Zhongshan tunnel, Shenzhen Zhongshan Bridge is now operational, and the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge was opened to traffic a few years ago. There was the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. There is the Shenzhen Zhongshan link. And you know, when that idea was being proposed, Guangzhou's idea was even with that bridge, the Shenzhen Zhongshan link has to go up because the HZMB is to be administered by 3 governments, which inevitably give rise to problems. So the Guangzhou government wanted to set up their own bridge, to build their own bridge, directly linking Zhongshan with Shenzhen. On the Shenzhen end is the Shekou port. Now, Shekou area is one of the areas in Shenzhen that was it was one of the areas that was developed earliest. The berths were only 3 to 5, and the water depth was better than Yantian. Now with that, Shenzhen Zhongshan link open to traffic. The Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge has immediately lost its advantage, especially when it comes to cargo transportation. It was supposed to be favorable to goods, Zhuhai goods exported via Chunmun, and there was also a plan of a railway linking up Shenzhen and Guizhou, but due to the opposition by Hong Kong, that didn't happen. Anyway, if you look at the overall map of the Greater Bay Area, we can see there are very sophisticated, the most sophisticated light rail, metro and train systems in China. Of course, there are shortcomings. Shenzhen has been adopting the model of property development on top metro stations, but they fail to be as profitable as Hong Kong MTR. Zhuhai and Macau are looking to adopt a uniform ID card, but I don't think that is possible because much is at stake. There are schemes encouraging Hong Kong youths to work in mainland China. There are all sorts of accommodations, free accommodations offered to Hong Kong young people looking to work in mainland. Shenzhen had an incubation plan, promising a fund and a venue for Hong Kong people looking to work there. 3 years opportunity or observation will be given to the Hong Kong people. And the Shenzhen government was even willing to seek investors for your project if it is successful. That obviously cannot be replicated by the Hong Kong government, who believes in their minimum role. Actually, the Shanghai DreamWorks haven't really much bear fruit. It is not very practical, so there are at the same time a lot of schemes that don't work as well as expected. Now, this is the Guangzhou metro linking up Zhaoqing. A lot of people are very keen on riding, taking a metro journey on weekends. For the retirees, they can take a metro for just 4 yuan to go to another city to eat a pineapple bun with actually pineapples inside that are not offered here in Hong Kong. Now, on this page, you will see a lot of publicities that are on paper, yet to be realized. Anyway, you can hear that they've been playing up the opportunities. The opportunities mainly lie in healthcare and elderly care, AI research and development. The AI capacity of mainland China is in a mid-rank, not even matching that of Hong Kong, much less the Western counterparts. Healthcare includes medicines and medical equipment, and then manufacturing bases and innovative genes. You can see a lot of catchphrases there, and you don't know what they are. There have already been 8 industry clusters with a value of more than 1 trillion yuan. Some of them are real, but again, you must see it with a pinch of salt. Some of the clusters are of national scale. For example, you talk about low employment percentage, low employment rate of mainland China has been constantly at 5%, very low by the international standard. But that 5% was only counted among urban population. If you're working in rural fields, and you can squat there, driving off the birds, they were not considered as an employment population. And then it is based on the registration. If you haven't registered as jobless, you will be counted as unemployed. And unemployment rate was as high as 20% when the government suddenly decided not to publish it. Now it has been published again. It is at 17%. So there are a lot of tricks applied, adopted in putting together those numbers. For these industry clusters, or SME, or investors, you can only join or take up a fraction of the opportunities. I proposed some ideas to SMEs in Hong Kong. For enterprises in China, they are very ambitious. Now they have grown. They are very prideful nowadays because they have mastered the skills and they have made the profit, and they are now less interested in seriously joining those industry clusters. And it is also said that electronic and IT technologies has been well developed. Again, that's on paper. Now, on this page, we can see the connections on the livelihood level. You know, is e-payment adopted on a widespread basis in mainland China? There are connections in healthcare that may help Hong Kong's elderly. You can basically cross the border to seek any kinds of medical services and cross-border medical aids. It is being experimented for the ambulances to cross the border without hindrance. It is, of course, convenient for some of the elderly, but it's very important to have sound planning on the government level. The official publicity has been playing up all these prospects and opportunities, but these grand schemes are very abstract. You have no idea what they'll look like when implemented. For example, they say they will help mainland enterprises to go overseas. Many of the mature major businesses don't even need the launchpad for Hong Kong. So this scheme is directed at small and medium enterprises. But we need to be very careful that some of them are actually using Hong Kong as a location where they do some illicit deals. And then there is the concept of cross-border consultancy platform. You know, such a platform is on offer in Hong Kong too. Some set up their own company, but how many of them can become like McKinsey? McKinsey is internationally known. Actually, a lot of mainland companies are very fond of the foreign names. McKinsey used to come to me and come to us for a research of the mainland market. They were charging exorbitant fees, except that a lot of mainland companies have fallen for them, very attracted to those foreign names. Now, cross-border finance, it's a very invisible idea. Finance is kept strictly, tightly in the hands of the authorities. And anything beyond that, if you're not operating within the government capacity, you can actually be those illicit banks transferring money across the border. You may know more about that than I do. And then this whole industry chain or whole supply chain service, Nansha, will host a comprehensive service center or consultancies. There are a large number of SMEs in China cannot reach the overseas market. If we think differently, how about helping them to go into those less developed countries? You know, these ideas used to be limited to the Belt and Road in North China. You know, when we talk about Belt and Road, there were three Belt and Roads. There is up, mid, and lower Belt and Roads. The one we're talking about is the South Link. The Mid Link is now ground to a halt. Russia has blocked actually the mid portion of the Belt and Road. There are conflicts indeed between Russia and China. Even though diplomatically they are joining hands against the Western world, but when it comes to economic and business interest, each has their own agenda. I'm very bold to speak up things that cannot be spoken in the mainland China. I can speak here. I'm just being honest. And I will spend more time on this portion. What about future strategies for Hong Kong? You can take pictures. We've had patents for these ideas. Some of the ideas have been adopted by the mainland, and some are being considered. Now you have taken pictures and turn up your volume to play up some of the issues. That may eventually work. You must let them know that you own these ideas. Many people read my articles and news commentaries, but they don't know that I have been doing a lot of work with the mainland parties. I went to the UK for the negotiation, and then I was stationed in Beijing to pave way for the handover. So, if you're interested about these topics, I can go deeper. Actually, my heart is for many, many Chinese ideas and Chinese schemes to come into being, come into practice. Otherwise, a lot of years will be wasted. I have seen how many efforts have gone down the drain. I certainly don't want that to happen again. If you're interested, you can go to Jeff and you can approach me through Jeff. Now, the Riverbend area, as well as Kai Tak and another region that have been idle for many years. Now the Riverbend area has been revived, or rather revitalized. Mainland has started to propose a scheme called a white list. By whitelist, I mean, you must know there's a main channel of Shenzhen River, and there's a bend portion of the river. When Carrie Lam was the chief executive around 2017, and the central government and assigned the riverbend area to Hong Kong's administration. The proposal was first raised when Chris Patten was the governor. He didn't take it seriously because he was leaving his office, and now the idea is being revived. The position for the riverbend area consists of manufacturing. I'm not talking about, the factory kinds of manufacturing. It's high-end manufacturing, and it also consists of research and development. There's also the academic elements in the riverbend portion of Shenzhen. Now, there's a Hong Kong portion, or the Hong Kong Park, and the Shenzhen Park. The positioning of the Hong Kong Park is, related to maybe your careers, like AI or other, that play to the strengths of Hong Kong. Hong Kong Park can work with Hong Kong for production. Bill Gates came to Hong Kong to talk with Richard about the harbour cyberport. The cyberport has evolved into a residential development project, which was supposed to only account for 20% of your entire project, but now the whole project is about property development. Now, when Bill Gates was in Hong Kong, he wanted to set up a shop front in the cyberport for his business, for marketing, but his production would be in mainland China. The first assembly lines of the Apple phone were located in Shenzhen. The high-tech industry is already accounting for 40% of Hong Kong's Shenzhen's GDP. If the riverbend area was developed earlier, Hong Kong would have reaped a lot of benefits. If some high-tech exhibition or high-tech fairs co-organized by Shenzhen and Hong Kong, if such fairs are actually workable, that would be awesome. But Hong Kong turned down the offer. The Shenzhen government officials told their Beijing bosses, okay, we have successfully negotiated with Hong Kong, and we're able to put it into practice. They've told Beijing, we've had an agreement with our Hong Kong counterparts. So the central government gets hold. So don't give it to Shanghai. Give it to me. Let me, Shenzhen, to organize the high-tech exhibition fairs. There have been many editions of the fairs, earning a lot of money from it. Actually, part of the profit could have gone to Hong Kong, but we have missed that. The ship has sailed. The whitelist mechanism. Some high-tech units or companies will be relocated there. Under the whitelist mechanism, those employed by those companies on the whitelist, for example, if you're a Hong Kong resident, you can go into the south portion or south part of the riverbend area without any identity documents. that is
你唔過藍線就得㗎啦。
the same
你一過藍線入香港境
with
啦，你就要
that's the
證
same
件。
with
呢個
the
白名單
Shenzhen
就係
residents,
即係佢公開
as
咗
long
邊
as
個得邊個唔
the
得。
border is not
呢個
crossed.
其實係偷咗當時唔好偷啊！佢哋研究嘅，唔好話偷啊！佢
Now,
哋研究
this
嘅。
was the
係當時我哋其中
brainchild
一條橋
of the
嚟㗎嘛。
Shenzhen
嗰條
government.
橋就係話將河套區南
The
線北
initial
線
idea
係
was to
有
draw a
限度開
north
放。
line and a south
有限度
line.
開放就香港人。
And
如果你嗰陣時搞生態旅遊，你只
The
要
lines will be
越過條
opened
南線，
on
你
a
唔過北
limited
線，
basis.
因為北線條河嚟㗎嘛，
For
點過
example,
啫？
if
係
Hong
嘛？
Kong people cross
咁你
the
就可以入到去。
south
你話
line,
多一個旅遊區，
without
多個
breaching the
生態
north
區，多
line,
個工業園區。
y-
咁你呢
you
個
can
係
go
咪
into that
所謂成港
ecological
鬆
or
綁啊？
industrial
你呢個
zone.
咪鬆咗綁先咯。好啦，深圳人你
Actually,
只要入呢
the
個河
control
套區
there
唔
would
過
have been
南線，
illusioned for Shenzhen
咁你咪
residents.
可以咩咧？
Crossing the north
你走
line
過就
without
話
breaching the
仲
south
未
line,
會有人偷渡嚟香港啊？
and
係嘛？
they
驚
can
你
actually
香
go
港
into
人
the
都
middle
上
zone.
驚㗎，係
Now,
嘛？
no people will, you know,
真係你要睇到個
make their way
時勢個
illicitly
變
to
化。
Hong Kong, but Hong
咁
Kong
當
residents
時
will
佢
sneak
就
up
話：哇，
to
要
mainland
驚
China.
啲
That's
人
the
偷渡落嚟。
new norm
咁所以
today.
大家如果你去到呢一個邊度啊？
But there was a
香港
fear of mainland
呢
people
個
sneakily,
白藝
stealthily crossing
一入去
into
嗰度咪全部鐵
Hong
絲網嘅，一定去到元
So
朗
a
嘅。
lot of barbed wires
翻嚟再遠
were
少
set
少
up
就係嗰個咩啊？
around the Yuen Long and the Pak Lai area,
唔知咩鵝鼻水之類，唔記得啦。嚇，係啦。
and
咁嗰度
around the
一直為
Jinbei
嗰啲
Zhui
鐵
area.
絲網攔到
A
元
lot of
朗
barbed
嘅。
wires
咁我哋
were
就驚啊！而
erected,
家邊有人偷渡
but now
嚟
there was no such fear because mainland
呢一個概
residents,
念
mainland
而家
people were
如果
simply
放
not
大化
interested
用埋
in
我哋
living in
個
Hong
建議咧
Kong.
就會更好啦。你哋可以有機會我再同你詳細講。
These ideas were able to be expanded. That would be very productive. I'm more than willing to share my ideas with you. I will take them together with me into my coffin. I sure want somebody to appreciate and put into practice
國內
my
一句説話，唔怕做唔
ideas.
到，只怕諗
There's a
唔到。
saying in mainland
諗到
China
就做到㗎啦。
that as
當然
long
有
as you
好有
have an
壞。
idea
呢個香港又唔好亂
that
嚟。香港有香港嘅好處。
you are
好啦，
successful.
講完河套區，好啦，善用 SIPA。大家記唔
Now,
記得而家
the
SIPA
future
係第幾
strategy,
份
the
協議
future
咧？
strategy, second one
記得
will
咯，
be
因為已經冇人
full utilize
會
of
再去諗
SIPA.
SIPA。
But
SIPA 嘅第一份協議係2003年
the
沙
first
士，
agreement of
國
SIPA
內救香港經濟兩樣
was
嘢，第一個
developed
自由行，
in 2003, part
第
of
二個就 SIPA 更緊密
mainland's
經貿
aid
協作
to
關係。
Hong Kong
咁
that has suffered
結果當
badly
時我
during
哋
SARS.
同香港嗰陣時啲官講，
Closer economic partnership agreement
嗰個真正
was
嘅
birthed back
好
then.
嘅地方兩樣嘢，
What
第
was
一個
truly good
零
about
關稅
SIPA?
或者低關稅，
First
香港
is
貨就可以入大陸
zero
啦。
or low
咁咪救翻香港嘅一
custom
啲咩啦？
duties for
咁啲人話：
Hong
哇
Kong
香港
goods
做
to
邊有工廠㗎？
go
全
into
部喺晒
mainland
珠
China.
三角啦。
Well, you
咁
may
結果
think
我哋當時諗
there
咗
are
條
no
橋係點咧？
factories in
喂，呢一個
Hong Kong.
product
All of
都
them
除咗個 product 之
are
外，其實有包
located
裝啊
in
嘛，包裝有包裝
Pearl
紙
River
㗎，
Delta.
包裝紙上面有 design 㗎嘛。
But a
係咪？
certain product is not
咁你
all,
只需要嗰張包裝紙係
once
香港
after
design，
they're
你
produced,
然之後
you
作
need to
家
wrap them up
喂，我
and
呢個
design the
design 成個
package.
product 嘅80%
If the
嘅投資嚟嘅，
package
任你
or
作
the
㗎啦嘛。
wrapping is
咁
done
你咪可以變
in
咗
Hong
將嗰張
Kong,
紙
and you
運
can
上去。
claim that this part contribute
咪
to
可以
80% of the
連
finished
你
goods
其
value,
他嘢
and you can
零關
claim
稅啊等等好
you know
方便啊嘛。
this as a
呢啲
made
就係
in
你
Hong
諗到
Kong
就
product,
得
and
㗎
you
啦。
can make
但
use of the
我唔敢
low
講而家
custom
嘅官
duty
員啊，
benefits.
我只能夠講好多官員俾我感覺
A lot of officials,
思想便秘啊嘛，
and I think that they
諗唔到嘢㗎
are
嘛。
very rigid in
咁
their
而家覺得好啲
thinking.
啦，而家可能醒啲
They're
啦
not。very flexible
咁所以 SIPA
in their
當時
policy
係其中
ideas.
一個咁樣嘅。好啦，到今時今日10幾份啦，補充又補充。
Now there are many more editions of agreement
SIPA 最精彩嘅一樣，
related to SIPA, but none of
國
them
內係
are
一
able to
港人
capture
㗎
the gist of
但係香
SIPA.
港因為我後來我已經冇做，
Our mainland counterparts was
以
able
前
to
我
capture
仲
it,
可以即係同各方面啊有
but the
傾
Hong
下
Kong
偈。
side
咁我 SIPA 最
simply
精彩嘅
can't
一
get
樣
it.
嘢，
So what is the gist
叫做
and the best criminal crop of
移換
SIPA?
影係乜咧？ 因為 CEPA 俾香港產品其中一個
Actually,
優惠
one benefit
就係
extended to
可
made
以
in
俾
Hong Kong
其他
goods
貨
under
品
CEPA
提早2
is
至3年進入中國市場係
they can
免稅
go
或者
into
低稅
the mainland
係
market
嘛？
2
咁只要
to
香
3
港嘅
years
公
ahead of
司中小型
others
企業都得㗎，
at a
你哋有
very
興趣可以自己
low
做㗎。
duties.
你
It
只
is
需要
open
香港
to
註冊嘅公司，
all
然之後揾到外國嘅 partner。以
companies
前
in Hong
香港
Kong.
人只係揾外國嘅大
If
企
your
業，
companies are
但我話呢
registered
個思
in
路
Hong
而家
Kong and you are able to
因為冇咁嘅
find
條件。
a foreign partner,
大嘅企業已經直接
you know, those major
你可以
foreign
揾
companies
外國
go
嘅中
directly into
以
the
至
mainland
小
China,
或
but
者
you
唔
can
好到微
approach
型，微型你係嘥錢
small
嘅，
and
微型你係嘥
medium
錢嘅，
companies
中型或者 有
of
規模
foreign
嘅小型
countries.
企業。點解呢？
You can find
因
them
為
as
外國呢一類
partners
企業有好
that
多
can be
佢
very
哋嘅專
effective
有產品嘅。
because many of these
你
companies
只
have
需
their
要同佢
own
合作一間
patented
公司喺香港註
products.
冊，
If you
香
form
港
a
係
joint
大
venture
股嘅，
with them,
一定係
registered in
51%
Hong
嘅。
Kong, and the Hong Kong side
你唔好俾人諗咧。
takes up
然之後
51% of
對
the
方就會諗啦，
ownership.
佢有產品，但佢要遲2年、
Now the
3
other
年先可以
side,
進入中國市場。但係如果同
they
你香港
will
合作
eye
咧，
on
可以即刻入
that
到去喎，
benefit
係嘛？
going into the mainland
咁
market
而且中間
2
點丟，
or
佢個
3
product
years
可能入咗
ahead
去
of
之後咧
others.
係佔80%利潤嘅。你香港要做搏腳1-2成，你
And
都制。
you
咁
can
對
keep
香港企業嚟講，你
80% of the
端端多咗
profit.
2成生意啊，
And
你
for
唔使
Hong
做
Kong
喎。
companies, you don't have to have your
如果
product,
再
you
做
just
同對方
find
經理
a
係
joint
30
venture
倍價，
partner. You already earned
人哋攞埋 product，
20% of
咁你已
the
經可以
profit
贏
or
滿
even
盈啦。
30%
呢個
of
先
the
係精
profit
華嘛。
using
但係你同嗰個會員講，
foreigners' products.
咁你話
But you know, the Hong Kong people simply can't get it.
呢個就
They
係
fail to make use
最精彩
of the
嘅地方。
CEPA, and that is
而
the
家
gist.
其實可以嘅
That's
喎
the best
因為冇人去推
benefit
啫
of
嘛，
CEPA.
冇人去推，冇人去
It is still
將
workable.
佢變成
It
一
has simply been
個
overlooked.
行之有效。其實呢度
Nobody
咧
has
可以
turned
由
it
政
into
府
a
企
practical
業係
approach.
佔中間嘅，佢正話所講嘅就係服務平台啊。我以前咧
The government
其實我
and
即
companies,
係我諗到好多嘢，如果我自己做埋咧，
they're
我就
interested
唔使
in
企喺今日
setting
呢
up
度講
a
嘢
platforms.
做口水佬。
If
但因為
I
我哋一直以嚟
get my
都
hands
希望個
dirty
政策諗咗出嚟俾
and
國家用，
benefit from
中國
CEPA,
好
I would have
我哋
been
都開
very
心㗎。
rich.
唔會有啲人成日覺得我哋成日講我哋唱衰中國，咁唔係㗎。你又點諗
You
我又
know,
唔理你啊！
A lot of Hong Kong
呢一條
people
橋
are
咧，
very
我
keen
又有好
in
多，
benefiting from the development of China.
因為過去係
A
曾
lot
經
of
有
them are
幾
pretty patriotic.
邊啲外資係問過。咁當然而家
They
你
simply
做
don't
啦
know how
好
to
啦，跟住檢
make the
測
most
驗
of
證
it.
呢一個又係香港可以掂嘅，
And then this
而家都可以做嘅。檢測
certification.
認證係乜咧？係指呢兩個產品，中國同外國
You know, there
兩
is
個
a
產品。
product
如果你要進入我
made
市
in
場咧，
China and
我
made
要睇你合唔合
overseas.
標準先。
If you're going to enter the market,
藥物
you
啊
have，to pass
等
certain
等。
certification,
咁人哋咧就
especially
唔信中國嘅標準
electronic
嘅。
products or
咁中國話我嘅標
medicines.
準比你嚴謹
You know,
喎。
Chinese
你睇
standards
中國嗰
do
啲
not
食物檢測
enjoy
嘅標準比你嚴謹喎。
extensive
但係人哋唔信你就唔信你啦。
reputation
其
or
實人哋係一
trust.
種保護主義嚟㗎嘛。
Actually, a lot of
中國有保護
foreigners
住
are
自己嘅
pretty
市場，我俾你入晒嚟，
self-protective,
我有我嘅
and
檢測㗎嘛。
Chinese
好啦，
are also protecting their own
中
market,
間香港就可以做啦，
insisting
係咪
on
咧？
their own standards.
因為
So
人哋信
Hong
香港
Kong
啊嘛。
can be a
當時
bridge
我哋提過
between
條
the
就係
two sides.
外國產品
Hong
如
Kong
果要
commands
入
the
中
trust
國
of
市
many
場，
foreigners. So the
先
idea
嚟香
was
港做嗰
for
個檢測，
foreign products to go into the
攞
Chinese
到香
market.
港呢個
They can
驗
go,
證啦，
they can come to Hong
可以入
Kong,
大陸。
obtain the
咁
certification
你話
of
外
Hong
國都可
Kong,
以去啦。
and then they
但
will
係
be
巧妙嘅
qualified
地方就
for
係，
the
假如
Chinese
中國
market.
嘅藥物去
If
外國咧，
Chinese
外國唔
medicines
信你中國嗰個啊嘛，嗰個
want
標
to
準
go
啊嘛。但
overseas,
係走嚟香港，過
they
一個
can
熱
come
河，
to Hong Kong
由香
to
港
get
嘅
Hong
認
Kong's
證機構、檢
certification.
測機構認證咗啦。咁你攞住呢個中國藥物
With
就可以
Hong
去外
Kong's
國啦嘛，
certification, the Chinese
係嘛？
medicines
呢個咪我
can
呢個
reach
做法
the overseas
中心
market.
有係無端端你香
We
港
are
當時我哋做呢個
making
研究嘅
something
時候，
out of
香港係
nothing.
有大概11000個
There
不
were
同類型嘅檢測機構。
11,000 such
咁當時計
certification
過數，如果你
agencies or
係一加埋
institutions
呢
in
個單
Hong
咧，藥物
Kong.
已經可以增加到3萬間檢測機構。你無端端香
With
港多
medicines
咗
to be
萬幾個
certified,
跟住你請人㗎
you
嘛？
know,
你
there
睇下
can
大
be
學裏邊
another
嗰啲乜藥劑啊、
20,000 such institutions, employing a lot of people, a lot of graduates. If you have an idea, you can make a lot of things work. Somehow, the idea it didn't come through.
咁
Now
但係國內咧又有國際上邊
China is already
中
leading
外鬥爭嘅壓力。
in the area of certification, except that has been caught up in international conflicts today.
先諗通呢條橋先。
I think this is still doable.
呢一樣嘢要小心。
And
我哋而家能夠用到嘅
this
資歷
is
互認咧，就係香
mutual
港內地嘅。
recognition
香
of
港國際上面
qualifications.
咧，你要增加個資歷嘅互認咧，有難度
Now,
嘅。而
most
家
of the mutual recognitions happened between
因為呢個已經
mainland
去
and
到
Hong
一個
Kong
中外
nowadays.
嘅外交
And
鬥爭個問題啦。
that
咁而家
between
國
Hong
內
Kong
咧，你睇
and
最近
foreign
香港啲大
countries
學
are pretty
嗰啲驗證
hard.
係，你會發覺假嘅，你都唔知點認證。你而家開始
By
啦，
the
就揾
mainland
國
side,
內啲驗證啦，系統
not
啦。
reliable.
但係總之呢個我唔詳細講，但係呢個要小心。好啦，金融創新同內地，
I won't go into details about that.
因為國內有國內一個
Financial innovation.
係使錢嘅。
China has its
我
own
詳細講啦。
financial products that is used for money laundering. I don't know about it, so I don't talk about it.
因為點解咧？我舉兩個好新
And
嘅
civilian think
因為
tanks,
今日我都 keep 住㗎。
there are different
我唔會話以前嘢
there are different roles played by those think
第一
tanks.
就係國內
There are
啲
two
政府
dynamics
部
at play
佢
here.
落嚟香港揾香港嘅政府部門
For government
舉行會
agencies
議，
to
兩地
come
交流
and
啦。
organize meetings together with Hong Kong
或者
governments.
嗰啲智囊班子
You know, the Hong Kong
揾香港
government
一大班嘅
will
即
put
係專家
together
出席啦。
some think tanks and
國內啲政府部
experts,
門嚟到識咗嗰啲人咧，
and once the
佢
Chinese
就唔會再揾
government
香港政府啦。
agencies get to know these Hong Kong experts, they
開親會咧，
they
香港
will
政府個官員
skip
我介紹你哋自己傾啊。
you know, the Hong Kong government.
嗱，咁所以呢一個係官
You know, the Hong Kong
好啦，
government
另外
people
國內
don't
嘅
know
企
how
業
to
佢
talk
知道
business.
要靠香港咧，唔可以
The
靠正話所講嗰啲乜
mainland
乜
companies
嗰啲係宣傳啫。佢會揾具體嗰個行
they
業
need to
嘅
approach
業內嘅人士。
the industry
如果你香港度，你
representatives
可以
of the
一個細個
respective
呢
areas.
個真係企業啦。
If you're
所以
able
你
to tap
我
into
我
this,
講啲嘢我唔會
you can
即係
truly
我
help the mainland companies.
即係講咗
So,
講
overall,
咗個
We can see
想像
a
出嚟
lot of opportunities are here.
好啦，嗱，正因為咁，咁我哋要睇到而家同大灣
But
區
there
聯
are
繫
some
等等，有
factors
好多係好需
that
要
are beyond the control
咁
of
不
Hong
過有
Kong.
啲因素唔係香港可以決定嘅。我呢度只係講咗個
These
大
are
環
simply
境先啦。
beyond us. I'll talk
可以
about the
而家
macro
係啦。第一，主導權已經唔
environment.
係香港啦。
I cannot
呢
elaborate.
個唔係而家
Actually,
喺
it is not up to
2022
Hong Kong to make decisions anymore.
大灣區開
In
咗
the
另外
year
一個會，
2000, there was a separate meeting convened in the Greater Bay Area,
香港人冇參加嘅。
you know, excluding Hong Kong people's participation. The meeting
一個前港澳辦官員提出
was organized by,
咁大家你可以睇到，
you know, the
國內
mainland
覺得你香
people
港決策都唔掂嘅。咁於是啦
discussing who is going to be the leader of the Greater Bay Area.
尤其是而家
Hong Kong has been excluded.
所以而家咧
And the second factor is the international environment.
全部出翻嚟啦。
Now, all those
咁所以咧呢一個我只
uncertainties
係講，
have come up again with Donald Trump elected as president.
如果唔
The
係
Hong
咧，
Kong ASEAN government need to consider all these factors.
唔好睇見
Otherwise
中美關係未來將會更緊。
You
唔好睇
won't
見咁樣就以為冇嘢做，一定有嘢做。
you won't be able to play the game.
我哋提好多意見，反而係國內聽。
There are things that you can do.
因為點解？我哋唔係香港官員嘅權力來源啊嘛。我講俾佢
You
聽，
know,
佢就問阿爺。 咁然之後佢有
I'll propose these ideas to the Hong Kong government decision makers,
我對國內冇
but they
影
are
響
not
㗎。
interested
我同國內係
in
任線
listening
都
to
冇嘅
us
記住
because
我只係得一
their
條
power
線
don't
嗰
come
條就係
their power doesn't come from us, come from me.
你當我一個黐線
Actually, you can consider me as a lunatic,
內地而家呢
speaking crazy words.
嗱，我唔詳細講啦。
Mainland's economy has its own challenges right now.
贏咗之後，
Now with Donald Trump in White House,
億出嚟喎。
China talks about setting up 10 trillion yuan to
融資
rev
10萬
up the
億咪即係
economy,
政府
but where to get the money?
再
The only viable option is to borrow another 10 trillion yuan. Now the tenor for the Chinese government bonds is already running into 20 to 30 years. External factors, for example, foreign forces, I don't know whether such forces exist, but you have to, take their word for it. In my main powers piece today, I talk about some imagined threat, and there are some tangible perils. Some details that one has to be mindful of. You cannot afford to overlook. First is the internal conflict within the Hong Kong community. The Shenzhen has set up an office for a Nobel Prize laureates, especially those laureates of the physics and biology. Such laureates, when they come to Shenzhen, they can have the run of the place. Who have been playing the leading role of such companies? It is Dun Zongji, the Tuan Zongji, the president of CUHK. Now Mr. Tuan has chosen to leave CUHK and go to Singapore. And he is fed up with the games in Hong Kong. So this is the kind of internal conflicts within Hong Kong. And second is, how independent can Hong Kong be in the international arena? Hong Kong has 3 of its representative offices in the US. We now know that the offices will continue to exist. It's still largely independent from mainland China in the eyes of Western powers. And the final 2 issues is the Hong Kong's internal economic and livelihood issues and the support and the popular support of people. I've been telling my mainland counterparts or the mainland officials that if you fail to command the popular support, a lot of things cannot go smoothly. Having said that much, let me propose solutions. I would just propose several principles. First is we have to do things on a case-by-case basis. Secondly, we need to get to the bottom of problem. Is it a political problem? Is it of a political nature, or of livelihood, or economic or social nature? That is the most challenging. And Chinese political culture has the tendency to label something, to label the nature of a certain issue. And thirdly, you must find out whether the failure is due to execution or the design of the policies. And finally, what is Chinese characteristics? What are Chinese characteristics? You're from mainland. Can you tell me what Chinese characteristics are? Well, Chinese characteristics are fluidity. You just mentioned one area, one part of the Chinese characteristics, so I won't give you an answer. And I won't take up any more of your time. Again, just consider me as a lunatic. Nobody has come to me for economic comments. I have published a book. You won't guess who is the author by looking at the name. It is about the lunatics speaking crazy words. In this book, I spilled my I've recorded some of the major events I've experienced in the past 51 years. You see, I had a very long hair back then. You know, that was my hairstyle, but now I've lost all my hair. In the book, I penned and I write some of my thoughts using lyrics. I put together melodies and lyrics. I was stand in the 10 Downing Street, witnessing the negotiation. I was stand in number 18 Yui-Siu Lau State Hotel, and there was a picture taken with Zhao Ziyang. I'm just a nobody, but due to the time I live in, I've been able to witness these experiences. So in this poem, I talked about my ambition, my patriotic spirit. I didn't turn up at the wedding banquet of all my brothers and sisters because I was thinking, you know, these private and family issues cannot get in the way of me serving and contributing to my motherland. So you can see, I know what I do, and I love my country. That was me back then. And then, having witnessed the chapter, an exceptional chapter, you know what it is. There was a major transformation in the Chinese community. I wrote the second poem. I talk about my internal turbulence in the early 1990s. But I remained loyal to the motherland. You know, bullets were soaring above my head. But I'm thankful that only I'm a short person, otherwise I'll get shot. So, up until today, I still call myself as a patriotic, but of course, patriotic, not by the standard of Chinese. I know I consider myself as a patriot, not by their standard. So when penning this poem, only one can tell what message I've been conveying. That was my wife. You know, you can even see my name there. You can buy my books. I'll write a song here. I'm not going to sing the song for me because I'm not a licensed singer. You can actually sing it to tune. I couldn't get back to China, so I could only sit there. And I can write songs, write some news song. Eventually, I expressed my ambitions to salvage the community and the young generation. And finally, in this poem, I was expressing the hope. I led the young people to this part in the Kennedy War. Using the analogy of the roots of the trees, I am saying that we should draw nourishment from any environment we live in. I told the young people, you can lay low. When the time is in your favor, you can shine. I know Anita Mui. Now, the first character of each line was to express my fond memory of Anita Mui and Yong Mei-ling, but I was subject to much criticism because of these two lines. Now to wrap up, I hope the Hong Kong people to keep up this lively spirit, to have a broad horizon, to be proactive, to make your home in Hong Kong. Keep your heart for Hong Kong. I know many of you want to have some interaction with Mr. Lau. Now I've got 3 questions for you before the interaction. You can use your phone to scan the QR code on the site. Can you show the full QR code? Your answers to these questions will form a basis for our interactions. The first question is the collaboration good for Hong Kong, Greater Bay Area, or both? I know many of you will choose good or very good. Second question is, at the moment, is the arrangement of collaboration proper and accurate? Ordinary, proper and accurate, need to improve? You may have your personal opinions about that. You know, we're talking about complicated collaboration. Is our government doing a good job to make it proper and accurate? The third question is, what is the most challenging issue for the collaboration? Is it for entry arrangement, consumption, medical arrangement, or business or institutional arrangement? Or is it culture, or even ideologies? Oh, it turns out that many of you will have chosen system of thought and ideology and institutional collaboration. We've got time. As George said, many of Hong Kong people have been, doing business and living in the mainland China for decades, and it's the same the other way around. Many mainland people come here in Hong Kong to raise funds to go to IPO. So the collaboration has always been here. It's all about how to benefit the most from the scheme. Now the first question will come from Stanley, an architect of CDI. This is my this is an old friend of me. Now I'm an urban planner. I want to talk about something. Last Saturday, there was a seminar on the Northern Metropolis, attended by representatives of different institutions concerning architects, designers, and surveyors, as well as government officials. There was a map that we looked at. The riverbend area is located in the center. To the north of it is the downtown Shenzhen, and to the south of it is Yuen-Long. But when it comes to the planning, it was supposed to be a remote area of Hong Kong. Now, that map was shown by legislator Yui-Siu Lau, my senior alumnus. I expect him to talk about something more challenging. And he told me we tend to be a little bit reserved in our opinion. We only touch on something. We won't be very blunt. Now he would single out the challenge of an institutional issue. So I want to raise a question. Mr. Chen Chi-chung, at the beginning of this year, he was very honest, and he boldly predicted a convergence in property prices between Shenzhen and Hong Kong. There were two cases. A friend of his and wanted to hire an MBA professional. He eventually hired someone from Shenzhen for only 6,000 to 7,000 yuan per month. And I knew of another friend who was a tech talent coming from the mainland, earning $20,000 in Hong Kong. And he's not living in Hong Kong, he's living in his rented in an apartment in Lo Wu. But in Hong Kong, for 4,000 yuan, you can only rent a simplified abode. So he is commuting every day between Lo Wu and Hong Kong. So if we talk about the overall strategy, I've had my properties in Hong Kong, I've settled down, but for the young generation, you have to worry about the convergence in property prices between the two cities. I believe, especially in the northern part of Hong Kong, that is inevitable and impending. And how do we cope with this situation? The second question revolves around pay and salary. Recently, if you go to the Labour Department's website, you can see the import of talents from mainland China. They may come to Hong Kong with a very good education background and take up some jobs, quality jobs, and hoping to attract investment into Hong Kong. But in the Labour Department website, you can see a scheme of importing talents from various industries, dozens of them. Usually, if you have a college degree with 3 years of work experience, you can come to work in Hong Kong. But Hong Kong has lost its attraction to many million people because of the living space and others. Now, Chen Chi-chung talked about the conversion in property prices. That was the first question. And the second issue is the convergence in paying, convergence in labor pay. If we keep importing talents from the mainland, inevitably, the average pay level in Hong Kong will be dragged down. I'm not opposing the collaboration. Now that the trend is inevitable, but are there any practical issues that we should pay attention to? Mr. Lau?
可以講係任何一個想法，
I can say that
單一角度都可以成立嘅。點解我咁
what you
講
said
咧？
can
因為
come true
如果
wherever you look at, however you look at it.
即係我係先講香港人國內
Now, for a Hong Kong
國
resident
內喺香
to
港嚟講咧，其實佢
live in the
哋
mainland,
嘅方法係比我哋諗得仲多。
I
如果
think
香
that
港喺翻國內，
there are more ways than we can think of for the mainland residents to
真係只能
live in
夠
Hong
係我
Kong.
正話所講嘅4點。
But for Hong Kong
你自己
people
嘅
to
意願
travel
係點先？如果你
the
係
other way
願意翻
round,
去
it
嘅，
hinges
你
on the
睇
four
自己嘅能
factors:
力
your
你嘅
your
能力係諗住自
willingness,
己創
are you
業
willing to
嘅
go there,
細地
and
嘅
are you
鋪頭仔
able to
你
go
先
there, set up
定
your
係
own
話
shops
你
or businesses,
打工嘅。
or simply find a job there in the
如果一
mainland?
般嘅喺國內打工係冇優勢㗎。
Now, for an average Hong
冇
Konger,
優勢㗎。
you don't have a competitive
咁
advantage
所以
working
你即係提
in
到嗰個問
mainland
題咧，
China.
我只能夠講
So the question you raised,
必須
in
要
response
因
to
應
it,
嗰個具體
I will keep
個 case。
coming
具
back
體人
to the
具體
case-by-case
佢自己嗰
approach.
個嘅你話 employment
So
有佢自己嘅諗法係點？
What's your willingness? What's your capacity?
冇辦法有一
What's your
個
plan for your career?
嘅例子
There's no
嚟
typical
處理每個
example
case，等於
or
我
the
最後
one-size-fits-all formula
嗰個就
to advise the young generation.
即係
As I
個
said
案處理
in the final page,
咁如果你
we
話再
have
宏
to
觀
take
嘅一啲點睇咧咁樣
case-by-case approach,
呢個就
you know,
要
to answering
自己
your
本身如果你
questions.
後生仔
If you take a macro perspective,
佢哋
we need to understand that the young people nowadays,
唔係宏觀啊，因為後生仔嚟講最緊要之後佢上到
they
呢個
lack
情
a
況
basic understanding
佢哋
of the
睇嗰啲係
country.
眼前㗎啦嘛，
They only
佢冇辦法
focus
影響好大
on
㗎啦嘛
the
佢哋自己本身
immediate
嘅心態
things.
點先？
You know
係
how they see
而家好多人
mainland
想
China.
係一種消費心態，
Many people
定
only
係
go
話
up there
上到
as
係一種創業心
consumers.
態咧。
But few
而
of
家
them
國內創業，即使你有
are
做
there
一般
as
手續
entrepreneurs.
或者開嘅鋪頭仔，
If you want to run a business in mainland
除非
China,
諗到一
even if you
個
just
好
want
特
to
別
open
嘅
a coffee
經歷
shops, well,
有
it's
㗎
not
得㗎，
easy to survive
即係
in
而
the
家
stiff
國內
competition
照顧小眾啊！
unless you
你成
can
日咖啡
find
廳都係㗎，
a
你
gimmicks
揾到個
that
case
work.
就可以搞。
The
咁所
sales.
以一定係要唔同嘅人，佢自己本身個
You
諗法
have。to find a very niche market
咁當然有啲以前係想搞個書
to
店仔，
sustain your business.
80年代、90
In
年
the
代
1980s or
係
90s,
禁書嚟嘅。
you can set up your bookshop.
行業或者揾到一個 area，
So
能夠
anyway, you
係
have to find
即係
your strength
識見到小眾
area,
咪都可以生活。
your niche
但
market.
係而家咧，你話講書喎，好簡單。我呢本啦，
Okay.
呢本
If you're selling books
我呢本
nowadays,
完全冇政治喎，乜
you
都冇
know,
喎，
this book
而
of
且好
me
感性嘅喎。
doesn't have any
係
political
大家有興趣，大家可以
elements in
睇
it.
下。你哋有興趣咧，我同你用你嘅名即刻插一對對聯俾你。
If you're interested,
一
you
分
want to
鐘
buy
搞
the
掂。
book, I
大家試
can
下玩下。
write a couplets with you using your name.
我喺度度都係講賣書展啊，唔可以其他咩，就係你有興趣買咗，我即刻將你
So
個名拆
if you want to buy,
我呢本
I can
書，
immediately
大家你睇完咗之後咧，有
I
啲
give you
人
the
以前未睇過我啲作品嗱，你又成日睇我啲
Many
作
haven't
品啦
read my books.
未睇過我啲作品嘅時
If
候
you haven't read my
揞住
books,
嗰個作者名，揞住嗰
if
啲
you're
相，
if you
咁
don't
我問
see
佢，
the
你
photos
覺得
and don't see the name of the author,
係咩人嚟㗎？
and
佢就話：
and
我
I'll
覺
ask
得
you
你係
about
一
the
個
author,
詩人嚟嘅。
and
哇！我幾
people
萬
will
個唔
say
使教啊！
the author
梗係啦，
has
因為
to
點
be
解而
a
家香港
poet.
去到咁嘅環境
I was so
我哋搞新
excited
聞
by such a
我哋知
compliment.
道有好多嘅界線，
We
我哋
working in a
我
news
哋冇辦
profession
法，但係個空
need to
間
be
真
cautious,
係越嚟越低。你哋睇下最近
like
杜
walking
琪
on the ice.
喺 BBC 嗰個訪問，你知啊
Have you seen
連
Johnny
佢呢個
To's
地
interview
方都頂唔順都
on
企出嚟講，
BBC?
你可以睇到嗰
Or
個
even
界
him,
線
even
幾
he
有問題啦。咁所以我呢幾年嚟咧，
hasn't
我已
been
經
able to
開始
find
轉咗
where the
做其他嘅
boundaries are.
我有
So
小
in
説
recent
我出咗
years,
3本小説
I've
啦
I've switched to write novels
我另外我有我嘅詩
rather than
歌
news commentaries. I write poems, I write songs and
甚
other
至上我有我嘅粵劇
literatures. I even have my Cantonese opera works.
你哋大家第日邊個
This is
有興
what I
趣
expect
或者
of
有
Hong
其他
Kong people.
有搞文學嘅，搞藝術
If you want to
嘅
go
話
into literature, Or if you know any friends that want to be a writer, come to me. I'm combining news, current affairs, and literature. I combine all three into a new mix. I try to find my own path forward. This is the approach or the attitude to be adopted by many Hong Kong people. Well, sometimes my name itself can be rather politically sensitive, but the content itself, I think the book will not be an issue in mainland China. If you talk about the Greater Bay Area, before talking, why don't you just cross the border and experience for yourself what it is to live there? If you're in the trading business, just go to the mainland. The diplomats of China often say, if you keep criticizing China, but you haven't been to China, you're not qualified. I'll say the same to the Chinese officials. You haven't been to the US, but you keep criticizing the US. But my point is, before you comment or criticize a certain place, you have to be there. Now, I will open up the floor to our other participants. Ms. Kong. Thank you, Mr. Lau. Have you thought about 2047, what it would be like? Well, to be diplomatic, to be politically correct, I would say a bright future is awaiting us. There is no a standard answer to it. I usually start off telling you, I won't give you an accurate answer until 2 years from now. Anything I say is more of imaginary, but my answer 2 years from now will be more accurate. Why is that? 2 years from now, it will have been 2026. I said that last year. I would say 2026 is going to be a pivotal year for Hong Kong and for the rest of the world too, especially with Donald Trump in the White House. It is going to be a momentum year because in 2026, where will Chinese economy be? Chinese economy is in trouble, but it doesn't collapse because of two factors. First, administrative orders can get things done. They can go against, market principles. They wield great authority and power. Yes, things can need to go through Legislative Council or the National People's Congress. But everything can be passed reasonably soon. The second factor is the Chinese government is able to spread the pressure and the pain inflicted by foreign powers on its entire population and spreading it across 1.4 billion. They can always give you the numbers to reach the target. But for now, standing here, I can't give you an accurate answer. The key for now is how to respond to Donald Trump. He doesn't talk reason. He can be very unreasonable. So You have to think of how to respond to Donald Trump. I keep telling Chinese people, you must be acutely aware who your enemies are. It's the foreign powers, not people in Hong Kong. You have to be very clear about that. You are not fond of the US, neither am I. But the Chinese people, the Chinese government keep, damaging the Hong Kong people, stripping Hong Kong people of their political freedom and rights. This is an undeniable truth. Now, my Chinese friend didn't understand what I meant. I told him, you want to rival the Western powers. All along, my position is to help Hong Kong, help defend Hong Kong from external interference or external impacts. Now, China has accumulated pretty solid hard power, but when it comes to soft power, we remain laggards. Western powers to play the Hong Kong games, their position is nothing to pay. And Chinese attitude is pay for nothing. The Western powers have nothing to pay, and the Chinese government pays for nothing. I'm not looking to sell my books. I want to support Jeff and what he does. Many people can't decipher my books. I said, no, I don't have any, hidden codes there. Feel free to explore it. Anyway, the future of Hong Kong is on you. Now, we are approaching the end of tonight's session. Let's take a photo.
咁我哋後邊咧，其實阿夫子嗰本書都擺咗喺度㗎啦。咁大家陣間可以落去買咁樣啦。咁啦，當然啦，我哋咧其實阿夫子嚟緊11月尾咧，我哋都會有活動嘅。咁呢個消息咧，會透過 WhatsApp 或者 email 咧 send 俾大家啦。咁大家可以留意我哋嘅消息啊。咁同埋咧，我哋都希望大家可以繼續支持我哋啦。咁我哋後邊有個籌款箱嘅，大家希望可以做一個 donation 去繼續支持我哋嘅活動啦。咁我哋都有個問卷問題嘅，咁呢一度咧，咁大家可以攞你個手機，係啦，咁啊 scan 個 QR code 咁樣，我俾2分鐘大家，其實好短嘅一個問題。